Welcome back, Leggari Nation. On today's video, we're showing you an epic epoxy transformation on this 2,000 square foot home. We go over an existing epoxy surface because the epoxy that was there before did not hold up to industrial grade standards. Now with Leggari, these homeowners can rest knowing this epoxy will stand through time, giving their home the look they've been wanting. All of our kits have a lifetime warranty. Check the description below for more info and enjoy this video.
Okay guys, now it's time to start the floor. We have all of our part A's separated and measured out with the metallics mixed in them, all the part B's sitting next to them. Same thing with the highlights. All of our part A's separated, metallics mixed in, part B's right next to them. I mean, it's ready to go. The first thing we want to do is grab our first bucket. And again, we need 1.5 gallons of part B. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to use one of these 5-quart containers, and I'm just gonna dedicate that to measuring out 1/2 gallon. Because for every one of these buckets, remember, we gotta split one of these gallons. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do. I'm gonna grab one of these, this goes here, and then I'm gonna use half of this one. I like splitting this first. And I'm going to measure 2 quarts out of this B. So now it's truly all separated. I'm just gonna do this every time I mix. So now I have a full gallon here, I can feel it, and I have 1/2 gallon here, I can feel it, right? A heavy one and a light one. Because if I poured 2 quarts out, obviously I have 2 quarts left in this. And now I'm just gonna take this and set that 2 quarts next to my next batch. So I have my first 2 batches pretty much ready to go, and all I needed to do is just pour out 2 quarts from one of those gallon containers. So remember, you always want to have a lot of checks and balances. So I feel this is my light one, that's 2 quarts, and this is a full gallon. So I have 1.5 gallons of B now. That's what I'm going to do nonstop as I'm going through this. So as soon as I pour in this hardener, the clock's ticking, let's rock and roll. Two-to-1 ratio. I started with 3 gallons of part A, and then I just added 1.5 gallons of part B. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. These are 4.5 gallon batches. Now what I'm going to do, and this is the most vital part, I'm only going to explain this once, and then you're gonna see me just do every batch like this. I'm gonna mix this for about 1.5 minutes, moving the drill up and down, scraping the bottom, scraping the sides with the head of the drill. Then I'm going to pour this entire bucket into a brand new bucket, completely brand new bucket. I'm gonna scrape this into this. The reason why we wanna have a secondary mixing bucket is to make sure we have no soft spots on the floor. So what I'm doing is I'm now scraping the sides of the bucket, and then what I'm going to do is I'm gonna mix again for probably about 1 minute, and I'm gonna move this drill up and down a couple times all the way through the mix. All right, let's pour this out for Tyler. I'm gonna come right back out. I'm gonna start making my second batch because remember, for every 2 of these batches, we're gonna do 1 highlight. Tyler's on spikes, but it's because he's gonna be walking around on the floor. So now, remember, I've already taped off this section, so it's my job when I'm pouring this out, I just kind of want to go around the perimeter of this and maybe dump it through the middle, and then Tyler will be careful not to spread it past this thing. Don't be scared to keep this upside down because you've used the secondary mixing container. I'm gonna go mix another batch. Tyler's gonna start spreading this out, and then we'll take you out there and show you the highlights.
All right, now that Tim's got it poured out, I'm gonna be using we call it a magic trowel. Craft Tool makes them, you can get them on Amazon. They're just a squeegee. All I'm trying to do, again, I'm not going past the lines that he put up. So this blue line, I'm just imagining a line here. I don't wanna push the product past it. And when I'm moving this stuff around, I wanna keep my trowel the squeegee at a low angle. If I move product with this straight up and down, it's gonna pull it too much and there's not gonna really leave any product behind. As long as I have it at an angle, I can apply a little pressure and it's always gonna leave product behind. So first things I like to do first is go around, get all my edges done. Once the edges are done, I can start going back and forth and kind of flattening these beads out, getting the whole thing covered. Once we do that, I'll take an 18-inch roller and I'll just cross roll the floor real quick. That's gonna help level it out. If you have sticky spots that sound really sticky, it's too thin there, so we need to get product there. If you're rolling it and it's just pushing a lot of product, it's probably too thick. So as we're doing that, I'll kind of show you what to look for when we're doing that. But we'll get started right away because again, once he adds that hardener, you want to get this stuff out of the bucket, on the floor, spread out, get your sections done, and just work yourself out the room. So there we go. Now you can see it's leveled out. All my edges are done. I have my line, right? So I know not to go past that. Now all I have to do is spread out this section in the middle, roll it, same thing on the next section, and then add my highlights. And if you're not familiar with how to lay stuff out, the best way is to do your edges like we did here, and then just go back and forth. See how I have a big pile here, which is okay. I know where there's some thin spots, like right here, the concrete slopes up a little bit. I just want to make sure we have a decent amount, even though it's going to want to flow down. And then over here, it's a little thin. So all I'll do is start pulling some of this product over to the spots where I know it's thin. And then we've wrapped painter's tape on this to de-shed it. All we got to do is pull it off. And that's going to remove any fibers or loose hairs that are on the roller. So what I'm going to do, I want to start my roller, since it's dry, out in the middle where I know it's nice and thick. I don't want to start on an edge where it might be thin. I know we have a decent amount of product out here in the middle. And I want to just hit some random spots until I get this soaked up. I don't want to just sit in one spot. And we're using a 1/2-inch nap since this is such a big floor. It's just going to make it go a lot easier. So once I'm done cross rolling this, I'm going to immediately start spreading out that next batch. All right, so now that I have it soaked up a decent amount, we're just going to roll it. Just real quick. And the roller will start to sound not as sticky once it gets kind of soaked up all the way. So I can tell it's a lot thinner right here. So it's just constantly sounding sticky. So I can either take that squeegee, move a little product, or I can push it with the roller. All right guys, so all I'm doing, I know it's thin over here, so I'm just taking my squeegee and bringing some product this way. So that's it, guys. That's basically a section. Now, if you're doing one section at a time, adding highlights, you would add your highlights now. We're doing 2 sections at a time, and then we're gonna add the highlights. So I'm gonna do the same thing on this section that I just did here. I'm gonna take the squeegee, spread it all out. I'm gonna make sure I'm not going past these tape lines. We'll roll it, and then he'll bring the highlights out, and then I'll do the highlights.
This is why you wanna have everything set up ahead of time. Just like on the base coat, we already have our 2 batches. They're prepared, same thing with the highlights. So again, every 2 base coats, we're going to give him 1 highlight. It's already pre-measured. All I need to do is take the part B, the hardener, dump it into the part A that has my metallics pre-mixed in. So one of the reasons why you want to make sure you mix it in here, just like in the floor, just like in the base coat, and pour it into another bucket is because you will never be able to scrape the sides or the bottom of the container good enough. If you don't pour this into another container, you will have soft spots eventually on your floor. Even people, I hear it all the time, they've been doing it for 30 years and they don't know why they have soft spots on the floor, and it's the material's fault, but it's not. It's how you mix it. So I'm gonna mix in this, and again, pour it into a brand new mixing container, and then I'll give it to Tyler. So I have it into a brand new bucket, but now I've scraped the side, so I have some unmixed product that I scraped off the side, and it's in the middle now, so we want to mix that. All right, now I have the highlights, it's ready to go. We'll get this to Tyler. He'll spread it around on the ground. So now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna kind of go off of Tyler's lead. If he feels like I need to slow down, then I'll slow down. But I know, man, he's already got this leveled out. He's already got it cross-rolled. He's already got the highlights. I know it's gonna take him probably about 5 minutes to spread out these highlights and then start working them in. So I might wait about 5 minutes before I actually start mixing my next batch. I probably want him, maybe when he just starts to do the design on the floor, I'll watch him. That's when I'll start mixing my next batch. I'm gonna mix 2 more batches and then a batch of highlight, and we're just gonna go all the way through this house, and you'll watch how smooth it all goes.
So I'll finish rolling this out, and then we'll throw the highlights down, blend that, and then we'll just continue this process till we're finished. So there's a few ways you can apply the highlights, a lot of different ways. I'm just gonna dump it out on top of the silver, and then we're gonna blend it with the squeegee. Really cool technique, it's fast, it's simple, but I wanna make sure this is all I have for this section, right? So I don't wanna just start dumping a bunch out, get halfway through and then run out. I wanna get my piles, my veins, whatever, all throughout the floor, make sure I have enough left, and then I can go add more to each spot. So all we're gonna do is just kind of start out small, just randomly throughout the floor. All right, so if I ran out now, at least I have color everywhere, okay? I still have a lot left, so I can add more, right, to each spot. But before I do that, I always like to go around. The biggest thing you wanna do is make sure you get color on all our wall edges. If we went around and just blended this in, we're not gonna have black in a lot of this. We want this floor to look like it goes underneath the wall. So I'm gonna go around, just use a paint stick and get color right to that edge, just randomly throughout the floor. In the corners. This is the best way because it's a lot easier than trying to dump it out right next to a wall. And that's it. Now I'm positive I got color everywhere, right? Don't have to worry about running out now. Now all I'm gonna do is randomly add more to just random beads of black. We don't have to hit every single one, just randomly throughout the floor. I just want to make sure I can repeat this process throughout the floor. And this is pretty simple technique to do as far as recreating it on a large scale. And then if we have any spots that maybe look a little opened up, like maybe right here, we could add a little. And there you have it. So now we have our highlights down. So Tim will start mixing up that next batch. By the time I get done blending these, he should have that ready to go. So we're gonna use the squeegee for this. There's a few simple ways you can blend this. You can swirl it with the roller. When we're swirling, we use a 9-inch roller, and you just kind of swirl the whole floor and then blend in the colors. You wanna blend it enough to where it doesn't look like piles were poured out. So all I'm doing is I'm not trying to necessarily move the product a lot. I wanna just skim across the surface, move it random directions until I can't tell it's a puddle poured out. And I'll kind of show you that process. So we just kind of start. You can't really tell that we poured out piles, right? And if you have like, say like right here, a little spot, you can just kind of work that spot in a little, right? Maybe right here, we want to work that in a little. Doesn't take much to blend that around to kind of marbleize it out. But you can see how much ground you can cover. It's relatively a fast technique. And once this marbleizes out and we spray it with the liquid diamonds, it's gonna look absolutely beautiful. But notice how that color's going right to that edge. There's really not a bare spot on our edges. Notice how my chatter, my pattern, it's just all random. That's what we're looking for. We don't want to keep doing the same pattern over and over to where we have like a matching, overlapping pattern throughout the floor. That's why I'm constantly moving around different directions. So the cool thing about this process is we could do 10,000 square feet, and if we do this process, we're gonna have fluid material every batch. So it's not like we're trying to coat this whole floor, then add highlights. That'd be a nightmare, it'd never work out. That's why we split it up into batches. So when I get to this next batch and this floor's done, I got fresh fluid, right? Or fresh epoxy, fresh material. It's not setting up, it's not getting sticky on me. The process is key to split this up into sections and keep getting that fresh material. And I'm always like, see, I got a bunch of black there. If I would pull that into there, I'd even have more black. So I'm gonna pull that out to here where there's not necessarily much black. So I'm constantly looking where I have color, where there's not color. All right, so this is perfect, guys. I'm about to finish up. Tim's pouring out my next batch. The last thing you want to do is have product just sitting there waiting. So we time this just about perfect, because all I have to do now, once I'm done, is mist the floor with the isopropyl and liquid diamonds. And then we'll mist it with denatured alcohol to help level anything out in the floor. All right, guys, so it's basically spread out. I want to go around and make sure I don't have any just round spots that just look like a pile poured out. So I'm just going to quickly look over the floor. If I notice anything, or whoever's helping you, if they notice anything, point it out, blend it in a little better. But this looks really good. Everything looks nice and blended. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add our liquid diamonds to add a bunch of sparkle to the floor. And we just mix our liquid diamonds metallic powder into 91% isopropyl alcohol. So you want to use 91% or higher, and we want to shake it as I spray. And it's always good to test spray it. So that's what I want. I want small to medium drops, and you'll kind of see what this does. So I'm just going to constantly shake it as I'm spritzing the floor. This is going to add a lot of sparkle to the floor. And it's not like a cheap glitter where it looks like pepper, just a black speck of pepper. It's actually a metallic shimmer. It's really cool. So notice how I'm constantly shaking it, barely pulling the trigger, small to medium drops. All right, guys, so now we just repeat that exact process. Once I spread this out and roll these two next sections, I'm gonna go and mist the floor with denatured alcohol, and I'll show you guys that process. It's gonna help make this floor just lay out glass smooth. All right, so this is basically ready for highlights. Tim's mixing those up now. So now what I want to do, we're going to set this on the next section, and then I'm going to take just denatured alcohol. I'm going to put a mask on. Obviously spraying chemicals inside starts to really smell. The epoxy itself, it doesn't really have an odor, it's zero VOCs, but this stuff does. So I'm just going to wear a mask as I spray it. And depending on how bad it gets in here, I might just start wearing my mask. So all I'm going to do now is what we call spritz. We kind of spritz the floor with the isopropyl alcohol and liquid diamonds. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mist it. So this is gonna help level that surface out, help let any air out of the resin escape. And again, we're not torching it, so we don't have to torch our products at all. This is kind of just the process of doing it and helping ensure that we don't have bubbles and stuff like that. There you have it. So that section's pretty much done. I can have my highlights here, blend it, and we're basically just repeating this process until we're done with the job. All right, so first thing I want to do, I want to blend in, right, this line where it goes into our first section. So every time you do a new section, don't just start working from under the room. Blend that line in the first thing all the way down, so you're into the new resin. Don't really have to touch that previous batch of resin. So that's what I'm going to do first. Start on one end of the room and just work my way down. All right, so my edge is all blended in. Resin's still nice and fluid, so I'm not worried about seeing a hard line or the section that we did before. This will all blend in and marbleize beautifully. So I'll continue this. We'll spray the liquid diamonds, do the next section, spray the denatured alcohol, mist it, add our highlights, and again, guys, we just want to do the same exact thing. We don't want to do anything different throughout the house. We want to keep doing the same process that we did on that first section.
All right, we're getting ready to mix up the top coat for this floor. Now, just like the primer, we're only gonna mix up a couple kits. We wanna see how far it goes. These will go anywhere from 500, sometimes 700, 800, 900, depending on how flat the floor is, how much you've needed to sand, if you've needed to sand. So we're gonna start with 2. Just remember, you never wanna run out of top coat mix and then have to stop and then go mix up some more top coat. Always have somebody ready to mix another top coat if you need it. So once you start the floor, it's rock and roll time, because you want that whole floor to kind of set up as one layer. You want to minimize roller lines, as many roller lines as possible. So you kind of want to be rolling and doing your back roll, and it's setting up as you're laying down the new top coat. So if you need more people to roll, that's great. Always have more people than less people helping. So Tyler and I are going to be rolling, and we might have Alex help on some of the edges later on when we have to break out into the kitchen and into the halls and then try to make sure there's a wet edge on everything, and you'll hear Tyler kind of explain that. But I'm going to show you how to mix up the top coats, and just like it says, mix with part B. Once mixed, blend in 13 ounces of clean water. Now I'm mixing 2 kits at a time, so I have 26 ounces of clean water. So first thing we're gonna do is pour the part A's into the bucket. And just like with the epoxy, we're waiting for it to kind of go to a drip. We want that stream to kind of turn into a drip. And you can leave this upside down for 5-10 minutes if you want. I just want to get the majority of it out. All right, so that's starting to drip now. It's probably good. Now, just like the primer, this is a water-based product. So as long as it stays in a mass, it stays liquid. Once you roll it out, it starts setting up very quickly as the water begins to evaporate from it. So it's the opposite of epoxy. So epoxy, we tell you, get it out of the bucket very quickly, and that gives you tons of time to work with it. With these water-based products like the primer and the top coat, we want to keep it in a mass until we're ready to use it, until we're ready to roll it out. That's why we keep it in a bucket, we pour it into a rolling tray, and then it starts setting up after we roll it out. Gonna pour our part B in. Just like the epoxy, if you pour out too fast, it could get caught in this handle here. So just tip it up for about 5 seconds. Get everything out of the handle you can, and then dump it back over. This top coat is a 3-to-1 ratio, so 3 parts A to 1 part B. I'm gonna mix this for about 1.5 minutes, scraping the sides and the bottom with the paddle wheel. And then once it's mixed up thoroughly, I'm gonna slowly add the water as I'm blending it. Okay, now we have the top coat mixed. Now we're gonna go in there and Tyler's gonna show you how to apply it, and we'll all kind of be working on the floor.
All right, it's top coat time. We wound up waiting 2 days because it is cold where we're at. You typically want to do it within 24 hours, but obviously colder temperatures is gonna take the resin longer to set up. So we do like a fingernail test, or if you say you step out there, right, put some weight on it and you see a footprint, you might want to wait a little bit longer to top coat. That footprint will typically bounce back and become smooth, so that's not an issue. So everything's ready. We showed you guys how to fill any imperfections, outgassing bubbles, stuff like that. So we got the top coat mixed up. We're gonna be doing glossy urethane. We're gonna be using a 1/2 inch nap roller. We've already de-shedded it. I'm gonna be using an 18-inch roller. Tim's gonna be using a 9-inch. He's gonna hit our edges for me. That way I don't have to get right to the wall. And then all I'm gonna do is focus on the main parts of the floor. And then obviously when we get to the kitchen, we'll kind of separate and jump around. So we wanna keep a wet edge basically all the way throughout till we finish. Similar process to applying the epoxy. So we're gonna do it in steps, right? Roller widths basically all the way throughout the floor until we finish out in the garage. When you start with your roller, you wanna take a second, get it nice and soaked up. If you just dip it in there real quick and go roll the floor, you're not gonna have much product on there, you're gonna have to wind up re-dipping. So we take a second, we kind of soak the roller up for a minute. And we're using an 18-inch roller tray here. Put a garbage bag on it so we don't have to clean the tray out when we're done. And notice how I didn't fill this all the way up. So we don't want to fill that thing all the way up. It makes it harder to move. And also when you're dipping your roller in there, you'll get buildup of product here. And then when I'm rolling the floor out, it'll start dripping off and I'll have drips all out through the floor. So I want to try not to stick this all the way into the top coat, kind of just enough to soak this roller up. So Tim's gonna start, hit my edges. I'm gonna wait till he's got both sides. And then all I'm gonna do is work wall to wall, and we're gonna go towards the garage where we're gonna end. So while he's doing that, I'm just gonna soak this roller up, get it saturated. And all I'm trying to do is basically one roller width pass. I'm not trying to randomly start top coating the floor. We want to do nice, even passes, and you guys will kind of see once I start doing that how that looks. So his whole job is to not go too far in front of me. That way I can keep going on the wet edges. Nothing's kind of drying out. So my first dip, I'm just going to start in the middle and see how far this gets me. I might be able to do one full pass with one dip of the roller. So the idea is just to roll it out nice and thin, a couple passes before I do my final back roll. All right, so I got it nice and rolled out, nice and even. And I'll show you guys a little Leggari tip, how to minimize roller edges. So I'm gonna take and squeeze some of that excess product off just by tilting the roller. And now I'm gonna do my final back roll. And I wanna go wall to wall, as straight as I can be. And then pull it up at the other wall. So that's one pass. So we're just gonna continue that process. Now I know one roller dip is gonna get me from wall to wall. So I can always start right in the middle, roll a little one way, roll a little the other way, and then just go edge to edge.
And notice I'm watching him. I'm only rolling on each wall right now, and I've only went like 1.5 roller passes past him. So I'm only about 8 to 9 inches past where his roller is going. I always want to help keep that wet edge. If I just go ahead of him and I start doing the entire perimeter, by the time he gets there, it'll be dry, so it's like having 2 layers, and we don't want that. We're trying to make it as seamless as possible. And when I roll back in to get more, obviously if I only need to roll out a couple feet, I'm not going into the mix anymore. I'm just really just rolling onto this wet stuff onto the tray. I'm not even really getting into the mix. everywhere where you set this bucket down. Either set it on a rag or make sure you wipe the side with a roller, because drips will actually get hard and you'll notice those on the floor. So don't let your bucket just drip all over the floor either.
When I do my last back roll, I want to make sure I'm overlapped a little from the alignment I left when I rolled it out. And I'll kind of give you guys a close-up on the next one. So right now I'm overlapping the last pass I did, about an inch or two. And again, I'm trying to just keep it nice and straight. All right, so here's my line of the pass I just did. So when I do my back roll, I want to overlap that just a little bit. So I'll squeeze out my edge a little, roll that out, and then we're going to just overlap that. See how it's overlapping that? Caught that drip that was there. Got another drip. So we'll go back, we'll start that back roll again. See how I'm knocking down that hard edge? That's kind of it. So just continue that process.
If I ever need to try to pick up something maybe that Tyler doesn't see, or I see like a drip on an edge, a lot of times we'll feather that stuff out. So I'll start and then I'll pick up the roller as I see something, right? So, you know, if it's like a couple feet out and we're like, shoot, we should really take care of that line, or we should take care of that drip, this is about the only way to do it, is just take the 9-inch roller and just kind of feather it out. Lift it off the ground as you're rolling it a little bit. Be very light with it.
So guys, when I'm rolling, I'm only watching that edge. I'm trying to keep it on the same spot. So I'm watching the edge of this roller pass the whole time, making sure I'm not going crooked or at an angle. And same thing when I do that back roll. I'm just watching the edge, making sure I stay overlapped a little.
Now on this next roll, you can see we only have about a width left. So when he's done with his final back roll, I'm gonna get all along this wall and the last part of that wall over there, so I can pretty much get out of his way. So I'll wait for his final back roll and I'll just get ready and hit that wall real quick.
So guys, when I'm gonna stop, I gotta stop here. I wanna feather my roller off. I don't wanna just stop and pick it up. Kind of push it off like an airplane takes off and slowly lift it up.
So now we're getting ready to go into the kitchen area. So Tyler's rolling out this big area. We're about to go into the kitchen, but again, we want this whole kitchen area to be seamless in the top coat with the rest of the floor. So what I'll do is, as he's moving towards the kitchen area, I'll probably come in the kitchen and I'll start rolling it out with this 9-inch roller. It's a little more manageable in here. If I need help, I might call for him and say, hey, can you do a final back roll with that big 18-inch roller? But the goal being that I can work around the kitchen as he's working out there, and as he's working across the floor, maybe I can grab the other 18-inch roller, focus on the dining room area, and then we kind of go back into the middle with each other. So, you know, some things are hard to do and they're better in concept than in reality, so let's see what happens. So I'm actually going to soak up the roller a little bit more than I have been, because now I'm wanting to hit all my edges and hit them quickly. Obviously being careful of the cabinets. Notice we have the cabinets taped off a couple rows. Now I'm not going to do the entire kitchen. I'm just trying to get up to where Tyler can actually still roll into this long part of the kitchen. Now notice I'm still rolling out this area that's going to be under the stove. You're not really going to notice that, but we still want the durability under there.
You guys notice how I flip my roller over? I can't get under there normally. Flip it over, and you'll be able to get under your toe kicks there, cabinets.
So I'm still making sure that I'm a width ahead of him, but I'm gonna go into the kitchen and start rolling the edges out and possibly the middle. So again, if you need some help from the big roller, don't hesitate to call him over and have him do one final back roll. A lot of times with the 18-inch rollers, it's a lot easier to get that final clean back roll. We've done so much stuff over the years with 18-inch and 9-inch rollers that we're pretty proficient in both. Okay, so now really the areas that are left are, you know, a medium-sized room here. It's a decent-sized room, and this room right here, which is decent-sized. So now we're kind of back in action, right? I got the bathroom for him because that was pretty small. That was manageable with a 9-inch roller. Now I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to be in the hall, just try to stay in front of him until we go into the next room, and then same thing. I'll try to be in front of him with a 9-inch roller, just keeping a wet edge for him.
All right guys, so I rolled a little out. Obviously, I dipped my roller, I'm in the hall. I don't want to use a lot out there, so I rolled some out in here. I'm gonna jump out here in the hall. Roll a little bit of the hall out. So small rooms like this, I'll roll a strip down the middle, 1 foot or 2 foot, and then I'll cross roll that. And I'll just work one roller width at a time so I can bend over without stepping in it and doing my final back roll.
So I'm just going back in this utility room, not one of the more important rooms, but we still want to be really careful and do final back rolls. So I'm getting the material down on the floor quickly and then just being very light with the roller. So this is going to look absolutely beautiful. I'm just getting back in these really awkward areas. So I'm always keeping Tyler moving. So I'll get this up to the doorway, and then I'll pop back into this room, start doing the edge of this room again. You know, one thing that's noteworthy is that we don't have any cross airflow. We even shut the garage that this door is open to. We don't have any windows in the house. If you have a breeze or a cross airflow, this stuff will be setting up way faster than you can work with it. So if you're rolling it out and it's getting tacky immediately, it's because it's setting up too fast. It's because it's either too hot, too humid, there's too much airflow. So you never want to install this in like direct sunlight either. Like if you did an epoxy floor in a garage and the garage door's open and the sun's on the floor, you really want to cool that concrete down a little bit, because when this hits that sun spot on the garage floor where the sun's beaming, it'll set up almost immediately and go tacky. So you want to give yourself the best chance of having a successful install. Just make sure you don't have a lot of cross airflow or anything like that.
So we're going to show you guys how to remove the tape where we wanted to stop the resin. So we're just going to peel it up and start folding it back and forth, and it's just going to break off that seam. And then what we're going to do, since we're going to top coat, is we're going to put a new piece of tape down. That way when we're done, we just come and peel that off and it's really easy.